Bro. I forgot to shut the window, and I did not set any of the lighting up beforehand. So I had to shut the window really quick. Sorry. Hi? Question mark. No, yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was like, I had just pressed the button and nobody was in here yet, and I was like, I bet I can shut this window and get back really quickly. And not quick enough, apparently. Not quick enough for you guys. Hello. Sorry, I've been binge watching Risa Tisa all day, so I did not. This is not what I want. What I plan to do today. Oh my goodness. How are you guys? Oh, tell Toby I say hi. Tell all of your pets I say hi while we're at it. Can I be dumb and ask who that is? Oh, it is a creator who like recently went viral. Like, I mean, like within the last week. They have uploaded a 50-part series called Who the Fuck Did I Marry? And it's like 50 videos long, and they're all like 10 minutes long. So it's a whole 3 seasons of a show, basically, worth of content of how she accidentally married a pathological liar and didn't know it in COVID for like several months. It's insane. Like, she goes through the entire timeline of like, you know, how she found out and when she found out, of like how you find it out when she found it out. And it is, oh, it's some commitment. And so like they she's blown up recently, and so like but it's so fascinating from a psychological perspective because you're like, why the whole time. And and if you're the kind of person who gets paranoid like me, I'm like, the whole time. Because we've all had somebody lie to us, but not on the level of having like fake phone calls with fake family members on the phone in front of you, so it looks like every day for months. Like, that is the level. So it's insane. It's a really interesting watch. Obviously she's been through like a lot, and so, even just putting it out there as like warning signs, like what to look for other women and stuff. Like, she's doing it. She's doing the real work. She's doing the good work. So, but it is a great watch. I highly recommend it. That is not what my life is about. And there's a lot of people in here. I don't want to mislead you. This is a book club. We meet at a book club. We read a book every week. We're reading Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I'm just dishing on what I am finding fascinating lately. At the top, we do small talk, but small talk is normally pretty big for us. So hopefully you guys are doing okay. Yeah, it is. It was so wild. It is so wild. I stayed up so early this morning. I would say late, but we all know that's not true. I stayed up so early this morning, just like because I didn't want to put it down. And I was like, I still got like 10 videos to go. They're going live tomorrow. I want to know what's going on. You're no longer sick. That's great news. I know you were sounding better at the end of the live last week, but at the beginning you sure sounded rough, so I was hoping you got over it. But yeah, that's what I've been. Well, I'm glad you're here. Don't push yourself. If you gotta go, you gotta go. But man, am I glad to see you guys. It's been a whole week, and a lot has just sort of happened personally. I got medical things handled though. Dude, I've been doing so much adult shit that is exhausting that I don't want to do anymore. I still gotta edit, clean up this room, do some stuff. But that's par for the course. And I realized I did not respond to Corey or anybody in the Discord chat. Chapter's not that heavy this week. If you're new here, which I think a large chunk of you are, this is a book club. This isn't about Risa Tisa. I'm very sorry. I was just talking about it because I'm interested in it, and I was in the live earlier. Anyway, if you saw me there, like, this isn't about Risa Tisa. This is a book club. We read a book each week. We're reading Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. We're on book 4, Map of Days, so you're a bit behind, but it's okay. I got a YouTube with all the other books on them if you want to go binge those. But if you're not interested in books or book clubs, this maybe ain't the spot. So I'm just letting y'all know now. But we are just about to start chapter 14. I read to people each week, and we're probably going to get through 2 chapters today. But if you missed us last time, basically we're going to rescue that peculiar. We sort of got a lead on a location where there's something going down at a local high school that we don't super know the particulars of, but they got a location, and that's about as far as we got. They're in a pretty sweet hotel, I suppose you could say, and Jacob and Emma are not doing great. In fact, they've split up. They're just friends now, so I guess more on that later. But I wouldn't cut it completely out. Like, Millard got a date. Or Millard will get a date. That's not really much of a spoiler. But that is going to lead us into our next chapter where we are going to high school, guys. Who's ready to go back to high school? Should be a fun time. I'm not. Who hated high school? Sound off. I didn't do great. Please no. Yeah, we're going back. That's exactly how Jacob feels about the situation. Because if there's anything I agree with Jacob on, it's I don't belong there. I didn't belong there even when I was there. Like, So, we're going to have a fun time. I napped so hard today I thought I missed the bus. Like old school, like... You thought you missed the school bus? Me, and I was homeschooled in high school. Yeah, I no longer have the I missed the bus dreams, but I do have the I'm late to work dreams, I guess. I do have those. I no longer have the bus dream though, which is great because I did miss the bus a lot. Less because I didn't wake up, because I was great at waking myself up when I was a teenager, and more because I was the type of person to lose every single one of my belongings right before I needed to leave the home. So, like, I would be awake. I would just lose everything I owned within 15 minutes right before I needed to go out the door. Like, it would get to the point where I need to leave, and I'm like, I should be able to leave, get outside, I have 15 minutes, like, blah, blah, blah. I should be able to walk to the end of the street and be there. And then I'd go to leave, and I'm like, where are my shoes? Where's my math book? Where's my everything? And I'd run around, and then by the time I'd actually got there, it was always the bus was pulling away as I was... And I ain't running. I say wearing a marathon shirt. I just never ran after no bus. I was like, well, looks like I'm not going to school today. Mine's always art class panic because that was my first class basically the whole time. I always had history in the morning. I don't know why, but I feel like almost every single semester, like it was history in the morning. And I was like, why they put history in the morning? That's just not something I want to do. Because if it was later in the day, I would be more invested in it. I like history, but right at the beginning of the day, when I'm so tired, I'm like, no, I don't want to be here. What the? Sorry, my dog is barking. That would be the last thing I want to do. So I'm like not even enjoying a class that I would enjoy if I had it later in the day. Did my lip hurt getting it pierced? No. Not really. It feels like a pinch, and then it does swell the next day later. So it swells, and it kind of feels a little restrictive for the first day, and you're gonna bite it if you try and eat solid food. So if you're thinking about getting it done, eat soup. Eat soup for the first 24 hours afterward, or else you're gonna bite it, and it's gonna hurt way worse than it normally does. I'd say biting my lip hurt worse than the actual getting the piercing. I legit had my ex's teacher tell me I needed to give in my paper by Friday, not the same school. How'd that work out? No problem. All right. Well, we have a story to read. So, who is ready to go back to high school? We don't read the chapter because none of y'all want to go. You're like, no. All right. Chapter 14. We arrived at the school just before the first bell. I parked several blocks away to avoid being spotted by an overzealous vice principal. As we walked, I paid close attention to my gut, on alert for any telltale twinges, but there were none. We joined a mass of students climbing the main steps, then entered a long, bright hallway lined with classrooms and jammed with bodies. We flattened ourselves against a wall to keep from getting trampled and stood there, overwhelmed, as teenagers flowed around us like schools of fish. We ducked into an empty classroom to talk. There were posters of Shakespeare and James Joyce on the wall, and the desks were arranged in rows. I remembered what Emma said about never having attended a real school, and she looked a bit wistful as she took it in. "I would never normally suggest this," said Millard, "but I think we should split up. we'll attract less attention than we would walking around in a big baffled clump. And we'll cover more area, too, said Emma. Then it's decided. I wasn't sure they were ready to be on their own in a modern American high school, but Millard was right. There was no choice but to dive in. Bronwyn paired off with Enoch and volunteered to observe the PE fields and outdoor areas. They would talk to people, but not in Bronwyn's weird pseudo-American accent, and learn what they could. Being invisible, Millard couldn't talk to anyone, so he would sneak into the main office. If there was an incident dramatic enough to rate mention in a local newspaper, he said, then there are certainly records of other smaller incidents somewhere in their files. There might be a disciplinary write-up on this person, too, said Emma. Or a psychiatric one, I said. If they ever tried to tell the truth about what was happening, they at least got sent to the school nurse for a mental health screening. Good thinking, said Millard. That left Emma and me alone together, reluctantly paired. I suggested we go to the cafeteria, always a hotbed of gossip, and she agreed. Are you guys sure you'll be okay? I said before we all split up. You'll remember not to talk about the 1940s or use your abilities. Yeah, Portman, we've got it, Enoch said, waving his hand at me. You just worry about you. Everyone meet outside this room in 1 hour, I said. Anything goes wrong, pull a fire alarm and run for the front entrance. Got it? Got it, said everyone but Millard. Millard? Emma said. Where are you? The classroom door swung shut. He was already gone. School cafeterias had long ranked among my least favorite places on the planet. They were loud, ugly, they stank, and they were filled, as this one was, with cliques of anxious teenagers swirling around in a complex social dance I could never quite figure out the steps to. And yet, here I was, standing against a scuffed linoleum wall with Emma, having volunteered to spend an hour in one. I imagined myself, like I often did in school, as an anthropologist observing the rituals of some alien creature. Emma looked much more at home, even though the room was filled with people 8 decades her junior. Her posture was loose, her eyes coolly scanned the room. She suggested we join the line for breakfast and sit down to eat. To blend in, I said. Smart. Because I'm hungry. Right. We got in line, shuffled past hair-netted cafeteria ladies, and were handed trays piled with rubbery scrambled eggs, scoops of greasy brown sausage stuff, and boxes of chocolate milk. Emma recoiled a little, but accepted it without complaint. We took our trays and began to circle the room, looking for a place to sit, and at that point my just talk to people plan, which had sounded reasonable in theory, began to seem absurd. What were we supposed to do? Introduce ourselves to someone at random? So, have you noticed anybody strange lately? Everyone in the room was doing their own thing, talking to other people, locked into long-established friend groups. Hi, mind if we sit down? I'm Emma. This is Jacob. Emma had stopped at a table. 4 dumbstruck faces looked up at us. A blonde girl whose tray had only an apple on it, a girl with pink-dyed hair poking out from under a beanie, and 2 sporty-looking guys in baseball hats whose trays were overflowing. Pink-haired girl shrugged and said, Sure. Karen! The apple girl said under her breath, but then she moved over so I could sit. We put our trays down and sat. 3 of them were looking at us like we were freaks, but Emma didn't even seem to notice. She just dove right in. We're new here and we heard this school was, like, weird. She sounded practically American, but not quite, and they noticed. Where are you from? Pink Hair said. England and Wales, thereabouts. That's cool, said one of the hat guys. I'm from Seals, and he's from Dolphin. It's a country, dumbass, Pink Hair said. Near England. Hat guy number 1 rolled his neck. Duh. We're exchange students, I said. Apple Girl raised an eyebrow. You don't sound foreign. Canada. I was about to dip my plastic spork into the greasy brown stuff, then thought better of it. School is definitely weird, said Pink Hair, especially lately. What happened with your auditorium? I asked. Power outage or something? Nah, the quieter hat guy was shaking his head. That's just what the school told our parents. Apple Girl nodded at him. John was there. He thinks this place is, like, haunted now. I do not. I just don't buy this power outage thing. They're covering something up. Like what? I said. He looked down at his tray, stirred his brown stuff. He doesn't like talking about it, Pink Hair whispered. He thinks it makes him sound nuts. Shut up, Karen, said Apple Girl. She turned to John. You didn't tell me. Come on, man, said the other hat guy. You tell Karen, but you won't tell us? John held up his hands. Fine. And, like, it's not even that this is what happened, okay? It's just how it seemed. Everyone was looking at him expectantly. He drew in a deep breath. It was super dark. Nobody's phones or flashlights were working. They say it was some kind of electrical thing, but there's one door in the auditorium that leads straight outside to the faculty parking lot. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping. Someone opened it, but it barely gave off any light, and it was sunny that day. What? Said Apple Girl. I don't get it. It was like his voice dropped even more. The dark was eating the light. I was about to bring up the not-quite explosion in the bathroom that had happened later that same day when I felt a hard tap on my shoulder. I turned to see the vice principal-ish man from yesterday and a frowning woman with short hair and cold blue eyes. Excuse me, said the man. I need you both to come with us. Emma held up one hand and turned away. Go away, we're in the middle of a conversation. The kids at our table looked impressed. Damn, whispered Pink Hair. That wasn't a request. The cold-eyed lady grabbed Emma's shoulder. Emma shrugged her hand off. Don't touch me. Then things got ugly. It seemed like everyone in the cafeteria had stopped talking to stare at us. The lady went for Emma with both hands, and the man grabbed my arm. I flipped my tray of food at the man who let me go long enough for me to jump up from the table, and Emma must have burned the lady because she shouted and leapt backward. And then we were running together toward the closest exit. The lady was down for the count, but the man was chasing us and shouting for other people to help stop us. A few tried, but we dodged them. Then, up ahead, a half-dozen athletes in basketball shirts blocked the exit we were running towards. We stopped short of them and faced off. What now? I said. We burn our way through, Emma said, but I caught her hands before she could raise them. Don't! I hissed. I could see people aiming their phones at us, recording everything. Not while everyone's looking. I resigned myself to getting caught and started thinking of ways to talk our way out of this, but then the exit doors burst open behind the athletes. A throng of girls ran in screaming bloody murder. And I mean screaming. Their faces contorted with horror and streaked with tears, and the focus of the athletes and the vice principal-ish man in the whole room shifted immediately to them. I didn't even think about what might have made them scream like that. I just thanked the angels that it had happened. Emma and I plowed through the distracted jocks and out the open doors. We skidded to a stop in the hallway, looking around and trying to remember which way the main entrance was, when I caught sight of something bizarre running down the hall towards us. A pack of cats. They were dripping wet and lurching in a stiff, very un-cat-like way, and then I heard Enoch cackling and Bronwyn yelling as she chased him out of the science lab across the hall. He was doubled over laughing. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. As the cats wobbled around our legs, a bitter smell hit my nose. Formaldehyde. Enoch, you idiot! Bronwyn was shouting. You've ruined everything! He had created perhaps the only distraction powerful enough to save us, a herd of zombie cats. I never thought I'd say this, Emma said, but thank the birds for that little weirdo. The yelling in the cafeteria seemed to be dying down. It wouldn't be long before all those people remembered to chase us. We'll thank 'em later, I said, and I ran to the wall and pulled the fire alarm. You turned them into zombies? Emma was trying to seem angry, but was closer to laughing. We were in the courtyard, hidden for the moment, among a surge of evacuating high school students. It was such a waste of dead cats, said Enoch. They were just going to slice them up. For science, Bronwyn said. Sure. Enoch made air quotes with his fingers. Science. You were supposed to be in the PE fields, I said. Nobody would talk to us, said Enoch. To you, you mean, said Bronwyn. And he got bored and wandered off. I smelled sweet embalming fluid wafting through an open window, and I couldn't help myself. I nearly gagged. Lucky for you, I actually accomplished something while he was playing with dead animals, said Bronwyn. I spoke to a very helpful young man who was in the school when the bathroom fire happened. He said there was a loud sound and a bright light, and he saw a girl running through the hole afterward, chased by a couple of adults. What did they look like? I said. The girl had brown skin and long dark hair, and the adults had red skin from burns, and their clothes were smoking, and they were really mad. Did they get her? I asked. No, she got away. What was her name? I asked. Bronwyn shook her head. I don't know. I felt a hard tug at my sleeve. There you are. It was Millard whispering because we were among so many normals. I've been looking all over for you. Damn difficult. Some dolt pulled the fire alarm. That was us, Emma said. We needed to get out of there. We still do? I said. At several points around the courtyard and the front steps were administrator types in polo shirts scanning the crowd, looking for us. The fire alarm stopped ringing and a voice came over the PA system telling everyone to go back to class. "Let's go now," I said, "while we still have all these people for cover." "Split up," Emma said. She pointed across the street. "Meet over there, behind those cars." We divided, walked quickly out of the courtyard and across the street, and reconvened behind the row of parked cars Emma had indicated. The others crouched while I kept watch for adults in polo shirts. "Now listen," Emma said. "Jacob and I found something out too." "So did I," said Millard. "I didn't have any luck with the files and records, but I got to talking with a sweet young woman in the school office." "You talked to someone?" I said. "Do none of you care if we're exposed as peculiar?" "I'm a great deal more suave than anyone gives me credit for," Millard said. "Really, there's no need for hysterics." "So you talked to someone," Bronwyn said. "Yes, a rather lovely young lady who I believe knows our subject, and where to find her." "Okay, where?" Emma said. "I didn't want to push too hard. The subject is a friend of hers. She knows the subject is in danger, and she's understandably protective. I was gradually earning her trust when that blasted fire alarm sounded." "So, go back in there and finish earning her trust," Enoch said. "We made arrangements to meet later. She wasn't entirely comfortable discussing the matter on school grounds, anyway." "I can't believe you talked to someone," said Emma, shaking her head. "I wasn't seen, I assure you," Millard huffed. "Does no one have any faith in old Mullings?" The girl had agreed to meet Millard at a cafe after school ended. We had a few hours to kill, so we hiked back to the car, got in, and discussed what to do next. Bronwyn wanted to see the sights. "We're in New York. We should see the Liberty Statue and other historic touristy things." "We're on a mission," I said. "No way." "So, Hollow Hunters never had any fun on a mission?" "If they did," said Millard, "they never mentioned it in the operations log." Bronwyn crossed her arms and sulked. I didn't care. Even if we'd had time to go to the Statue of Liberty, I wouldn't have had the bandwidth to enjoy it. Bronwyn had this way of compartmentalizing experiences and setting stressful things aside, but I was too preoccupied with finding the girl and persuading her to accept our help. But even if we managed to do both, we still didn't know where this Loop 10,044 was. I understood why so many things had to be veiled in secrets and written in code, but I wished, just this once, that H could have just told me what to do and where to go, in plain English. "What do you think this loop number means?" I said. We were sitting in the car trying to figure out our next move. "Are all loops in America numbered?" Enoch asked. "If they are, we just need a directory of the numbers." "That would be nice, but we don't have one," I said. "What we have are the documents I brought from home." I fished them out of my duffel bag, and the others helped me look through them for anything I might have missed. We searched for the number 144 on the handmade maps, the postcards from Abe, and on every page of the operations log. After an hour, my eyes were starting to cross, and some of us were yawning. Even though we'd gotten 8 hours of sleep the night before, it had barely made a dent in our exhaustion. I fell asleep with the operations log in my lap and my head on the steering wheel. I woke with a crick in my neck to Bronwyn yelling at Enoch. "Now I'll have to launder my clothes," she was saying. "It's disgusting." Before I could ask what she meant, I smelled it for myself. Formaldehyde. Earlier I'd been too exhausted to notice, but Enoch stank of it, and now that we'd been shut in the car with him for a few hours, we did too. "We must find a restroom where we can wash and you all can change clothes," Millard said. He sounded panicked. We'd been asleep for a couple of hours and there wasn't much time left before we were supposed to meet Millard's contact. He gave me the name of the cafe. I typed it into my phone. "It's only a mile away," I said. "We'll be there in plenty of time." "I hope so," he said. "First impressions are everything." "Wow, you must really fancy her," Enoch said. "Caring how you smell? That's almost love." I started the engine and pulled away from the curb. Only then, as I was about to merge onto a busy road, did Millard say, very casually, "By the way, while you were sleeping, I deduced the location of loop 10,044. "What?" I said. "Really?" He held up one of Abe's postcards. I could only glance at it, but on the front was an illustration of an enormous bridge that spanned a river and a long, skinny island which looked even narrower than Needle Key. I came to a stoplight, which gave me a chance to look a little closer. Written across the top was Queensboro Bridge and Blackwell's Island, New York City. "Blackwell's Island," I said. "Never heard of it." "Read the back." Millard flipped the postcard over. I started to read aloud the note from my grandfather, but Millard said, "No, here, the postmark, Jacob." The postmark was a bit smudged and incompletely stamped, but you could just make out the date. 12 years ago, and at the bottom of the little black circle, a number. 10044. "I'll be damned," I said. I passed the card to my friends in the back who were clamoring to have a look. With one hand on the wheel and the other gripping my phone, I thumb-typed a search for the number 144. Right away, a map popped up, a red line drawn around a long, skinny island in the middle of the East River between Manhattan and Queens. The loop number wasn't a secret code at all. It was a zip code. We drove the rest of the way to the cafe with the windows down to air the formaldehyde smell out of the car, then freshened up in the bathroom of a fast food restaurant. Millard cleaned himself from head to toe with faucet water and soap from the hand dispenser, and when he was feeling sufficiently presentable, which I found funny considering his condition, we walked to the cafe. It was a dark, cozy place that felt like someone's living room, with old couches and Christmas lights strung between rafters and a bar at one end where a big coffee grinder was whirring away. The room was half empty, and I noticed the girl immediately, sitting at a table in the corner. She had wavy brown hair and wore a black beret and army pants. An arty type, I thought. She was nursing a giant coffee and listening to something on her phone with one earbud. When we came through the door, her head cocked in our direction. Here is a photo of the postcard. Millard led us over to the table. "Lily?" "Millard," she said and looked up, but not quite at Millard. "These are my friends," Millard said. "The ones I was telling you about?" We traded hellos and sat down. I was trying to figure out why she didn't seem perturbed that a voice was emanating from thin air. "What are you listening to?" Millard asked her. "See for yourself." The second earbud, which had been lying on the table, began to float as Millard inserted it into his ear. While he listened, two things came to my attention: the thin white cane that was leaning against her chair, and Lily's eyes, which never came to rest on any of our faces. Emma nudged me and we traded surprised looks. "He did say he hadn't been seen," she murmured. "Ah," Millard said, with what must have been a look of rapture. "I haven't heard this piece in years. Segovia, yes?" "Very good," said Lily. "That," Millard said, "is one of the greatest pieces of music ever written." "It's not every day that I meet another classical guitar geek. Nobody my age knows anything about real music." "Me neither, and I'm 97. Emma scowled at Millard and mouthed, "Why?" Lily chuckled and ran her fingers along Millard's forearm. "Pretty smooth skin for a nonagenarian. The body is young, but the soul—" "I know exactly what you mean," she said. It was starting to feel like we were intruding on a date. "Hey," Enoch more or less shouted, "you're blind!" At which Lily burst out laughing. Yeah." "Oh, shut up, Enoch," said Bronwyn. "Millard, you old dog," said Enoch, laughing. "I must apologize," said Millard. "There's something the matter with Enoch's brain. Whatever enters it slips out instantly through his mouth." "You okay, Lil?" the barista called over. Lily flashed him an okay sign. "All good, Rico." "They know you here," I said. "It's practically my second home," Lily said. "I have a standing gig every Thursday night. Pop and jazz, though. No Segovia." She nodded to a guitar case propped nearby, then shrugged. "I guess the world isn't ready." Her expression changed suddenly, hardened a bit, as if she had remembered something unpleasant. "Millard says you're looking for someone." "We're looking for a girl who burned those two men," said Bronwyn. Lily's face soured. "They attacked her. She was just defending herself." "I didn't mean to say otherwise." "Hell of a defense," said Enoch. "They deserved worse," Lily answered. "Can you tell us where she is?" Emma asked. Our questions were making Lily tense. "Why do you care about Noor? You don't even know her." "Noor. Her name was Noor." "We can help her," said Bronwyn. "I'm not sure I believe you, and that doesn't answer my question." "We understand a little about what she's going through," I said, hoping I could approach the truth without going all the way to it. "Okay." Lily took a sip of her coffee, swirled it a little. "What's she going through?" I traded a glance with Emma. How much could we say? Even if we could trust Lily, what would she believe? "Something's happening to her that she doesn't know how to make sense of." said Bronwyn. And she can't go to her parents about it, I added. Foster parents, Lily said. It might be affecting her body, said Emma. Changing it. There could be people watching her, said Millard. People she doesn't know, and it's frightening. You're describing the experience of almost every teenage girl, said Lily. And, I said, leaning toward her and lowering my voice, she can do things other people can't. Things that don't seem possible. Powerful, dangerous things, Millard added. Lily was still for a moment. Then she said very quietly, Yes. We know what she's going through because we've all been through it ourselves, Emma said. Each of us, in our own way. And then we told her, one by one, the peculiar things we could do. She listened quietly, nodding, saying very little. She did not seem frightened. She did not run away. Millard was the last to speak. I could sense his reluctance. That he liked this girl was obvious, and he didn't want to let go of the fantasy he'd been entertaining for the last few hours, in which he was just a normal guy who maybe had a chance with her. And my dear, this is Millard speaking. I regret to inform you that, like my friends here, I too am not completely normal. Enoch shook his head. Oh, this is painful. It's all right, Millard, said Lily. I know. You do? You're invisible. I could see Millard's expression. I couldn't see Millard's expression, but I could guess at it. Eyes wide, mouth hanging open. How did you... I'm not completely blind, she said. A lot of blind people have a little bit of vision. I have about 10%, not enough to get by without this cane, but more than enough to tell when a voice is talking to me out of thin air. I gotta say, at first I thought I was losing it. But when you started asking me about Noah, it all began to make sense. I hardly know what to say, said Millard. I knew Noah wouldn't be the only one. My dear, why didn't you say something? Millard said. I wanted to see if you'd admit it. Lily smiled. I'm glad you did. I feel so silly, said Millard. I hope you don't think me a cad. Not at all, said Lily. You've got to be careful, I'm sure. But so do I. She lowered her voice. You're not the only people looking for her, you know. Who else is? I asked. Police? No. I'm not sure who they are. They came to our house and to school, asking questions. What do they look like? I said. She's blind, said Enoch. Yes, you keep pointing that out, said Lily. They're the people who came after Noah at school, after what happened with the lights in the auditorium. They cornered her in the bathroom, and she was forced to defend herself. My mind went right to the vice principal-ish man and his cold-eyed companion. Could they have been peculiar? Or whites, even? Noah says they drive SUVs with the windows blacked out, Lily went on. They pose as authority figures, cops, social workers, school faculty. She can't trust adults at all anymore. Lily looked pained. She's the strongest person I know, and I've never seen her so scared of anything. We were sent here to help her, Emma said. I think we're supposed to protect her from those people. So, you told me what you can do, she said. But who are you? We're Miss Peregrine's peculiar children, said Bronwyn. You know what? Said Enoch. That doesn't sound quite right anymore. Oh, we don't know what we're called yet, I said. But my grandfather was in sort of like the FBI for people like us. And we're taking over. Oddfellows, said Lily. The Oddfellows League of Defense. It spells old, said Bronwyn. Did she just make up a name for us? Said Bronwyn. On the spot. I like it, said Millard. Of course you do, said Enoch. If we can't find your friend and help her, we won't need a fancy name, said Emma. We'll be back in the acre getting punished for the rest of our natural lives. Can you take us to her? I asked. She's in hiding, said Lily. But I can send her a message to ask if she'll meet you. Just then, through the cafe's front window, I saw a black-tinted SUV roll by very slowly. The passenger window was rolled down a few inches, and inside I could see someone in mirrored glasses scanning the neighborhood. We'd better make a move, I said. Is there a back way out of here? I'll show you, but first I need to text Noor, said Lily, which means talking loudly into my phone's speech-to-text app. Considering the subject matter, I think I'd better do it in private. May I be of help? Asked Millard, scooting back his chair. Someone at another table looked over sharply. Millard, cool it, I whispered. People are noticing. Lily stood up. Thanks, but I'm good. She began walking, a bit slowly, but with confidence, toward the restrooms at the back of the cafe. When she was out of earshot, Millard let out a long, wistful sigh. Fellows, he announced, I think I'm in love. Chapter 15. When Lily emerged from the restroom after a few minutes, Millard ran to offer her his arm. She took it, subtly, so it wouldn't look strange to the other patrons, and when they'd made it back to the table, she said, Okay, she's agreed to meet you. That's great, I said. Where? I'll have to show you the way. Where she is, I'm the only one who can reach her. I couldn't imagine what she meant, but I was intrigued nonetheless. We followed Lily out a back door into an alley behind the cafe. As stealthily as I could, I walked around front to our parked car. There were no black SUVs in sight, then drove to the alley to pick everyone up. They piled in. Millard insisted Lily ride up front. She gave us an address that wasn't far away. As we drove, the character of the neighborhood changed. The houses got older, uglier, then disappeared altogether, replaced by warehouses and industrial buildings, old and rusted. I noticed in my mirror that a certain gray sedan had been following us for a while. I took a sudden right turn, then 3 more in quick succession. After that, it was gone. The address Lily had given us led to a row of brick warehouses. At the end of the block was a building, 5 or 6 stories tall, that was still under construction. The bottom story was ringed by chain-link fences, the top half windowless and skeletal. I drove past it and parked down a side street. That was a bird. I have parakeets in the room over. Before we left the car, I grabbed my duffel bag and tossed in a few essentials. A flashlight, Abe's operations log, heavy, but I was paranoid about leaving it, and a certain pear-shaped fast food combo item from the glove box. One never knew when such a thing could come in handy on a mission. I slung the duffel crosswise over my back, shut the trunk, and turned to face the group. "Ready." "How do we get in?" Emma said. "There's a hidden entrance," Lily said. "Follow me." And then we were off, actually struggling to keep up with Lily at times as she strode down the street, tapping her cane before her. "You really seem to know where you're going," Millard said. "Yeah," Lily replied. "We've hung out here a few times. Normie, when we need to get away from people." "Like who?" I said. "You know, parents. Nora's foster parents, especially." She muttered something about them under her breath that I didn't quite catch, and then she turned and tap-walked down an alley that ran between a warehouse and the under-construction building. Halfway down the alley, she slowed and started feeling along the wooden fence with her hand. When she reached a particular board, she stopped. "Here." She pushed the board and it tipped upward, revealing an entrance to the site. "After you." "You guys hang out here?" said Bronwyn. "It's pretty safe," said Lily. "Not even the bums know how to get in." The place looked like a project some shady developer had started a decade ago, then abandoned when the money had run out. It had been left in a state of unfinished decay, both old and new at once. Lily got out her phone, pushed a button, and said, "Coming up," into it, which translated into a text message and sent. A moment later, the reply came, which her phone read out for us all to hear in an automated voice. "Stop at the atrium and wait. I want to get a look at them." It was Noor. Our peculiar. We were close now. We were following Lily through the scaffolding when my phone began buzzing in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked. Unknown number. Normally I would have ignored it, but something told me not to. "Just a minute," I said to the group. I turned back, ducked out into the construction yard, and answered it. "It's H." My whole body tensed. "Where have you been? I thought we were going to see you after Portal." "No time to explain. Look, I need you to abort the mission." I thought I'd misheard. "You what?" "Abort. Cancel. You heard me." Why? Everything's going according to... Circumstances have changed. It's not important that you know the details. Just go home now, all of you." I could feel my temper starting to rise. After all we'd done, I couldn't believe it. Was it something we did? Did we screw something up? No, no. Look, son, it's getting too dangerous. Just do what I say. Abort. Go home. I was gripping the phone so tight my hand was starting to shake. We'd come too far to quit now. You're breaking up, I said. I can't hear you. I said go home. Sorry, boss. Bad connection. Who's that? I heard Emma say, and I turned to see her coming out to retrieve me. I ended the call, then tucked the phone into the duffel bag on my back, where I wouldn't feel it vibrating. Wrong number. We followed Lily into the building, through a doorway with no door, then down a hallway from which the copper wiring had been torn, long gashes stripping the walls like black veins. Grit and plaster crunched beneath our feet. Ripped insulation lay everywhere like puffs of pink cotton candy. When Lily moved, she put her feet in almost the exact spots where there were already prints, as if she'd memorized the route step by step. Every so often I noticed there was an object that didn't belong, an old coffee can or a cardboard box turned upside down that her cane would knock against, and I realized they had been put there as way markers, so she would know how much of the hall she'd walked down. And how much was left to go. Turning a corner, we entered a stairwell. I can do this on my own, but it's safer if you help me, she said, and we all knew that you meant Millard. He was more than happy to give her his arm. We climbed 6 flights of stairs, then were all a bit winded. Now, it's gonna get a little weird, Lily warned. We left the stairwell and walked into a hallway that was absolutely pitch black, by which I mean there was no light at all, not even a minor glow from the stairwell. Rather than soft, gradual fall off of illumination, there was a hard line, like the light had hit some unseen barrier, and once we crossed it, we could see the stairwell behind us, but absolutely nothing in the other direction. Like the auditorium door, I said, and I heard Emma say, "Mm-hmm." I took out my flashlight and shone it into the dark, but the beam was swallowed up. Emma lit a flame in her upturned hand. The glow petered out after only a few inches. Nor took the light, Lily explained, so no one can find her but me. Brilliant, said Enoch. Link arms and form a human chain behind me, said Lily. I'll guide us. We followed her down the hall, slow and stumbling in the dark. 2 times we passed rooms lit by windows, but the light from outside didn't pass even an inch beyond the room's doorways. It felt a bit like we were underwater or in outer space. We made a few turns, and though I tried to make a mental map of our progress, I was soon confused, unsure I'd be able to get out again without Lily's help. The sound of our footsteps changed. The hallway had ended at a large room. We're here, Lily called out. A searing beam of light shone down from above. We shielded our eyes, blinded now by light rather than dark. Let me see your faces, a girl's voice called down, and tell me your names. I moved my hand away and blinked up into the light, then shouted my name. The others did the same. Who are you? The girl called. What do you want? Can we talk face to face? I said. Not yet, came the echoing reply. I wondered how often my grandfather had been in situations like this, and I wished I'd had a little bit of his vast experience to lean on. All that we'd been through came down to this. If this girl didn't like what I said next, or if she didn't believe me, all of our efforts would have been for nothing. We traveled a long way to find you, I said. We came to tell you you're not alone, that there are others like you. We're like you. You don't know the first thing about me, the girl called back. We know you're not like most people, Emma said. And there are people who are after you, I said. And you're scared, said Bronwyn. I was scared too, when I first realized how different I was from most people. Yeah, said the girl. Different how? We decided the best thing would be to show her. Since there wasn't much I could do that was visibly peculiar, Emma lit a flame in her hands. Bronwyn lifted a heavy block of concrete above her head, and Millard picked up some random objects to demonstrate that he was there, but invisible. He's the one I was telling you about, Lily said, and I could practically hear Millard beaming. So, can we talk? I said. Wait there, the girl said, and then the light she had made winked out. We waited in the dark while the sound of her footsteps approached. I heard them above us, then coming downstairs, and then I saw her. I drew a sharp, involuntary breath. She was quite literally glowing. At first, she looked like a moving ball of light, but as she got closer and my eyes adjusted, I could see she was a teenager. A tall Indian girl with sharp features, jet black hair that framed her face, and wide-set eyes flashing with intensity. Every pore of her brown skin was emanating light. Even the hooded windbreaker and jeans she wore glowed slightly from the light that shone beneath. She went to Lily and hugged her hard. The top of Lily's head only reached Noor's cheek, and with Noor's arms encircling her, it looked for a moment like Lily was wrapped in light. Are you okay? Lily asked. Bored, mostly, Noor said, and Lily laughed a little and turned to introduce her friend. This is Noor. Hi, Noor said evenly, still assessing us. Noor, this is... what do you call yourselves? Lily happened to be looking at Emma. I'm Emma, she said. I mean, what are you? Again, said Lily. Emma frowned. Emma's good enough for now, I think. I'm Jacob, I said. I stepped toward Noor and offered my hand, but she just looked at it. I lowered it, feeling awkward. Is there somewhere we can talk? Sure, said Noor. Let me show you to the grand salon. Taking Lily's arm, she turned and began to walk down the hall. She didn't seem to mind having her back to us, so it seemed she decided we weren't a threat. I noticed that the light emanating from her had gradually begun to dim, shrinking down into her core so that soon only her torso was glowing, and I caught glimpses of her shine only through her unzipped windbreaker and a rip in her jeans. She had been on guard when we first met her, but was starting to relax, and the light inside her corresponded somehow to her emotions. We followed her from a large room with bare concrete walls into a smaller, windowless room with bare concrete walls. A couple of chairs and an old couch had been dragged in and draped with blankets, and there were some paperback books and comics and empty pizza boxes scattered around, evidence of long days and nights spent here. There were no lamps that I could see, but light shone from the room's four corners, an apparently sourceless glow that was warm and yellow and breathed like firelight. We sat, we talked. Actually, I did most of the talking, since it was only a few months ago that I was making these same life-altering discoveries myself, while Nor listened, watchful and guarded. I told her how I had grown up knowing nothing about my true nature, how my grandfather's death had sparked this quest for truth that had led me to finding a time loop and meeting the peculiar children. She put up a hand to stop me. I was with you until time loop. Oh, right, I said. I'm so used to this stuff now, I forget how bizarre it must sound. It's a day that repeats over and over again, every 24 hours, Emma explained. They have sheltered our kind there from danger for centuries. Normal people can't enter them, Millard said, nor could the monsters who used to hunt us. What monsters? Nor asked. We explained, as best we could, what a hologhast looked like, smelled like, sounded like. When we'd finished, Nor seemed puzzled. What's wrong? I asked. Have you been attacked by one? I'm trying to figure you out, she said. You talk like crazy people. Time loops, monsters nobody can see, shape shifting. She went to the couch, picked up a dog eared comic book, and waved it in the air. You talk like you've read too many of these, and I would 100% have kicked your asses out of here already if not for Lily, who really seems to like you. And that, well, this? Emma lit a ball of fire in her hand, then poured it from her right palm into her left, the flames dancing hypnotically. Yeah. Nor dropped the comic book. That. She crossed her arms and leaned against the arm of the couch. And it's not monsters who've been chasing me. At least, I don't think they are. Why don't you just tell them about it? Said Lily. They want to help. You know how many times I've heard that in my life. They only want to help. Trust them. What could it hurt? Always the same lines. She drew in a deep breath and let it out simply. But I guess, in this case, I'm out of options. You're hiding in an abandoned building? Enoch said, relying on a blind girl to bring you food. Nor leveled a withering stare at him. So what makes you peculiar, little man? Oh, nothing too interesting, Emma said quickly, stepping in front of Enoch. Excuse me? Enoch peeked around her. What, are you embarrassed? Of course not, Emma said. I just thought it might be a little soon. If anything, it's late, Nor said. It's cards on the table time. No secrets. Enoch shoved Emma aside. You heard the lady. No secrets. Fine, Emma said. Just don't go overboard. Enoch stood and fished a plastic bag out of his pocket. It swung with the weight of something wet and dark. Luckily, I saved a cat heart from the school. He began to search around the room. Has anyone got a doll or a stuffed animal? Or a dead animal? Nor recoiled slightly, but seemed intrigued. There's a room full of mummified pigeons down the hall. She went out and showed him where it was. A minute later, she came running back into the room, laughing and swatting at the air, and then a pigeon, missing one wing and both its eyes, flew into the room and fluttered around madly. The rest of us covered our heads and dove out of the way. The pigeon flung itself against the wall, dropped to the floor in a cloud of feathers, and stopped moving. Enoch ran in. I've never controlled a bird before. Wicked! That was nuts, Nor said, smiling while she caught her breath. What the hell? What can I say? Said Enoch. I'm extremely talented. You're a freak, she said, laughing again. But I think it's cool. Really. Enoch beamed. Now, you know everything, said Emma, picking herself up from the floor. Your turn, I said. Okay. Nor went to the couch and sat. It'll be a relief to tell you, actually. The only person who knows any of this is Lily. We sat around her in a loose circle. The lights dimmed a bit. In a soft but hesitating voice, Nor began to tell her story. The first time I noticed something weird was last spring. She sighed, then looked around at us. It's so strange to be saying any of this out loud. Take your time, Emma said. We're not in a rush. Nor nodded appreciatively, then began again. June 2nd, a Tuesday, early afternoon. I had just gotten home from school, and Fartface, that's my not father, had been waiting around for me all day. The actual name she called her foster dad didn't begin with fart, but it did start with an F. We had a super long talk about how I was wasting my time with clubs after school, and instead I should get a crappy minimum wage job at Ice's Queen down the street. I told him my after-school things were for college applications, and I didn't need extra money, and anyway, the state was paying him and Tina to take care of me. He didn't like that. He started yelling, and I did what I always do when he yells, which is to run and hide into the kids' room where my two not siblings and I live, and which has a door with a lock. Greg and Amber weren't home, so I was the only one in there, and Fartface wouldn't leave me alone. He kept yelling through the door, and I was getting more and more upset, and I didn't know what to do. And finally, I opened my mouth to scream back at him, but instead, of my voice coming out. All the lights in the room got brighter for a second, like much brighter, and then broke. And that's when you knew, said Emma, that you were different? No, no. I thought there was a ghost in the room with me or something. A quick and vanishing smile glanced across her face, and then she shook her head. I didn't realize anything until a few days later, at El Taco Jr. Oh my God, right, said Lily. That was the day. Mm-hmm. I had just gotten accepted into this accelerated student arts program at Bard. I never thought I had a chance, but you made me apply. You were always going to get in, said Lily. Come on. Nor shrugged. It was for college credit and everything, but it cost $3,000, which was exactly $2,600 more than I had. So I was going to quit the after-school stuff and get that job at Isis Queen to pay for it. Fartface said, damn right, I was getting that job, but the money I made was going to their household bills, not to pay for some college before I was even out of high school. So I reminded him that I had the legal right to an emancipation bank account, and he started yelling again. And anyway, that's when I ran away and met you at El Taco Jr. He followed her, said Lily, and screamed at her right there in the restaurant. And then I started yelling at him, and I guess he couldn't bring himself to scream at a blonde girl in public. So he stormed off into the street to wait for us to finish. So we had the longest taco meal in history. We actually had time to finish the macho meal together, said Lily, which we'd never done before because it's 4,000 calories, but we sat there so long and I was just stress eating. While he was standing in the street, just staring at us, finally, I got really upset and couldn't take it anymore. And to keep from losing my shit with Fartface watching, I ran into the bathroom. And that's when it happened. I could feel it building up in me. And I was about to scream, but this time I held it in. And the lights in the bathroom started to flicker and get weird. And I don't know how to explain it. I just knew what to do. Knew I could. I reached out, reached above me, and scooped the light out of the air. And the whole room went dark. But the little space inside my hands was glowing like I had caught the world's brightest firefly. That, Enoch said, is so wickedly cool. You'd think so, said Nor. But it was scary as hell. I thought my brain had broken. It started happening all the time. And at first, I didn't know how to control it. Whenever I'd get really upset, sad, or pissed off about something, it would start to happen. And because school is so awful, it happened a lot at school. I could feel it coming, though, and I always managed to run away just in time. Into some room where I could be alone and no one would see. I think a few people did notice something, though they couldn't exactly connect it to me. They'd just see me looking upset and some lights flickering. But it was about then that they started coming around school. The new people. Who were they? I still don't know. They looked like faculty, and the faculty seemed to treat them like they belonged on campus. But no one recognized them. At first, they seemed to be watching everyone, but after a while, I got the feeling they were looking for me. Then that thing in the auditorium happened, and then I knew for sure. What happened exactly? We read about it in a paper, said Millard, but we'd love to hear your version of events. That was the worst day of my life. Well, maybe the second or third worst. I had an episode in the middle of school assembly. It started out as one of those awful mandatory things where they drone at you about school spirit, but then it turned into an assembly about me. Except they didn't know it was me. They said someone had been vandalizing school property, breaking light bulbs, and burning things. And they said if the person was in the room, they should stand up and apologize, and they wouldn't be expelled. Otherwise, they would. And I started feeling sick, like I was sure they knew it was me, but they were just messing with my head to see if I would confess. And then this girl in the row behind me, this total witch, Susie Grant, starts whispering that it was probably me since I came from a broken home, la 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 orphan girl from the wrong side of the tracks or whatever, vandalizing the school, and I could feel myself getting angry. Really, really angry. And that's when it happened? I said. The auditorium has all these theater lights on the ceiling, and they all lit up at once and then broke. And a ton of broken glass came down on everyone. Damn, said Lily. I didn't know it was like that. It was bad, said Nora. I knew I needed to get out there, so I made it dark and I ran. And a couple of the fake faculty people started chasing me. And I could tell they were sure it was me now. They chased me into the bathroom, and I had no choice but to let all the light I had taken out of that big auditorium go, all at once, right in their faces. What did they look like? I asked, though I was pretty sure I knew already. They're so normal looking. They're almost hard to describe, said Nor. Age, height, build, race? Middle-aged, middle height, middle build, mostly men, one or two ladies, a couple white, a couple brown. And how were they dressed? Asked Millard. Polo shirts, button-downs, a coat, navy blue or black always, like out of a catalog for average people with average jobs and no particular background. After you burned them, what did you do? I asked. I tried running back to my house, but they were waiting for me there too. So I came here. Lucky for me, I've got a lot of experience hiding from people. The more I hear about these people, said Bronwyn, the less they sound like peculiars. They don't sound like at all like peculiars, said Millard. They sound like whites to me. Like whites? Said Nor, looking confused. I just told you, some of them were brown. No, whites, said Emma. W-I-G-H-T? They used to be peculiar, turned themselves into monsters by accident, and have been our enemies for more than a century. Oh, said Nor. Well, that's confusing. They couldn't be whites, I said. There are too many of them. Whites work in small groups or alone. And there aren't even that many of them left anymore, said Emma. That we know of, said Enoch. I might have felt a hollow at the school yesterday, I admitted. What? Emma shouted. Why didn't you say anything? The feeling only lasted a few seconds, I said. I wasn't sure what it was, but if they were whites, they probably would have had at least one hollow gas traveling with them. Fellows, who they are isn't the most important thing, Millard said. Getting Nora to safety is. Once that's completed, we can argue till we're blue about who the people in the polo shirts are. Safety, said Nora. Where's that exactly? I looked at her. A time loop. She looked away and passed a hand across her forehead. The light in the corner flickered. I guess after everything you've shown me, I should be ready to believe that too. But I know, I said. It's a lot, and it comes at you fast. It's not just a lot. It's insane. I'd have to be out of my mind to go with you. You'll just have to trust us, Emma said. Nora looked at us for a few seconds. She started nodding. Then she said, But I don't. She stood up and took a few steps toward the door. I'm sorry. You seem nice enough. But I'm done trusting people I barely know. Even if they can resurrect dead birds and make fire in their hands. I looked at Emma and Bronwyn and Enoch. We were all quiet. I genuinely didn't know what to say, didn't know how to argue with her, but I knew I had to say something. I couldn't fail this way. I couldn't fail her, couldn't fail my grandfather, couldn't fail my friends, couldn't fail myself. But as soon as I opened my mouth to speak, the building began to shake. The sensation was accompanied by the sound of a churning engine. There was a helicopter hovering above the building. We traded anxious looks, waiting for the roar of the helicopter to pass. Seconds ticked by, but it only grew louder. We knew what it meant without anyone having to say it, but I said it anyway. They tracked us here. Nora's eyes flashed at me, angry and frightened. Or did you lead them here? Nora grasped Lily by the arm and speed walked her out of the room. We followed, pleading with them. We didn't lead them anywhere, Millard said. Not purposefully, anyway. I'd swear on an Imbran's life. We came into a large room and stood looking through an unglassed atrium that was open to the sky. Suddenly, the helicopter lurched into view, blocking the sky and filling the room with noise and whipping downdraft from its rotors. A spotlight blasted down, blanching everything and casting stark shadows onto the floor. Nora stared straight up into it, her eyes fierce, seemingly ready to make a stand against these people, whoever they were, rather than follow us. You've got to come with us, I shouted. There's no other choice. Sure there is, she shouted back, and she reached up with both hands and tore the light out of the air. The room around us and the space overhead went black, so that the only illumination came from a pinhole of sky above us and a glowing orb in Nor's hands. Something dropped down from above, a small hissing object that tumbled through the blackness before bouncing with a sharp metal ting against the concrete floor. It began spraying a cloud of white smoke, tear gas, or something similar. "Hold your breath," Emma shouted. Lily started to cough. Bronwyn scooped her up. "This is Bronwyn. I'm going to carry you." Nor nodded her thanks to Bronwyn. "This way," she said, and started at a run down one of the blacked-out hallways. We practically rode the back of her heels. Nobody wanted to be left behind in that unnatural dark. Sprinting to the end of the hall, we arrived at a T where we could go either left or right. Nor headed right, and we followed her. But a second later, we heard voices and heavy footsteps, and two men wielding a bright light came around a corner up ahead. They shouted at us to stop. We heard an echoing pop, and another canister came flying down the hall, landed near us, and sprayed gas everywhere. We all started to cough, then ran in the opposite direction. They weren't trying to kill us. That much was clear. They wanted Nor alive. Maybe, at this point, they wanted all of us. "We need to get out of the building," I shouted as we ran. "The stairs! Where are the stairs?" We rounded a corner and came to a dead end. Nor spun around and looked behind us. "Past those men," she said, pointing in the direction of the footsteps. "We're screwed," I said. "I'll have to use our Happy Meal prize." I slung the duffel bag around to my front and started to reach inside for the grenade, but Nor didn't seem at all fazed by our lack of escape options. "In here," she shouted, ducking through a doorway and into a small room. We followed her in. There were no windows, no doors, no other exits. "We're trapped in here," I said, my hand inside the bag, gripping the grenade. I didn't want to use it. What if it brought the building down on our heads? But if given no other choice, I'd take the risk. "You asked me to trust you," said Nor. "First, trust me." The footsteps were growing louder and louder. I slipped my empty hand out of the bag. Nor pushed us into the corner, then stood in the center of the room and began to rake her hands through the air. With each pass of her hands, the room around us grew darker by degrees, the little natural light that shone in from the hallway dimming and then disappearing altogether into her hands. And then she took all that glowing, concentrated light, stuffed it into her mouth, and swallowed it. I can only tell you what I saw, and it was one of the most peculiar things I'd ever witnessed. I watched that ball of light glow through her cheeks and travel down her throat and into her stomach, where her body seemed to absorb and dampen it, until finally, just as the footsteps were reaching the doorway, it disappeared completely. We were left standing in a blackness so total that when two men filled the doorway and aimed their building flashlights into the room, the dark seemed to reach out and wrap itself around them. Their lights were reduced to pinpricks, and they stumbled into the room half blind, one whacking the light against his hand while the other spoke into a crackling walkie-talkie. Subjects are on level 6. Repeat, level 6. We pressed our backs to the wall, silent, hardly daring to breathe. We were so hidden by the enveloping dark that I really thought they might not find us, and they might not have, except for one thing: my phone. It was set to vibrate, but even muffled inside my bag, it made noise. A tiny, humming sound that gave us away instantly. Everything that happened after that unfolded with incredible speed. The men both dropped to one knee. The words "firing position" flitted through my head just as Nor made a sudden guttural growl, and the light she'd been holding in her stomach shot up into her throat and burst forth from her mouth toward the two men in a blast that looked, even with my face turned and my eyes shut, like 1,000 flash bulbs going off at once. I felt a wave of heat. I heard the men scream and fall. When I opened my eyes again, every inch of the room was alive with bright, white light, and the men were on the ground, clutching their faces. We were about to run past them, out of the room, when more footsteps came. Another man rounded in from the hallway. He had a gun and looked about to use it, but Bronwyn lunged at him, grabbed him by the shoulders, and as his gun went off, flung him toward the back wall. He crashed right through it, pulverized concrete dust mixing in the air with a pink puff of blood. There was just enough time for Nor to turn back from the hole to Bronwyn, her mouth forming a perfect O, before we all came to our senses and climbed through it. On the other side of the hole in the wall, beyond the man's crumpled body, was a room flooded with daylight, and beyond that, a stairway. We barreled down it, Bronwyn carrying Lily over her shoulder, rounding corners at a dizzying pace until we descended 6 stories to the ground floor. We ran outside, then through a hole in the fence into some back alley, then through the parking lot of a warehouse and into another alley, not even looking behind us, just listening for the helicopter, which faded a little more and then a little more still, until we were forced to stop and catch our breath. I think you might have killed that guy," Nor said to Bronwyn, her eyes wide. "He had a gun," Bronwyn said, and set Lily down on her feet. "If you point a gun at my friends, I get to kill you. That's—" She wiped her glistening forehead and let out a sighing breath. "That's the rule." "Good rule," said Nor. She turned to me. "Sorry for what I said about you maybe being one of them." "It's okay," I said. "If I were you, I might not have believed this either." Nor went to Lily and took her hand. "You all right, Lil?" "Little shaken up," said Lily. "I'll live." "We have to get far away from here, and quickly," Emma said. "What's the fastest way?" "The train," said Nor. "Station's a block away." "What about the car?" said Enoch. "They know about the car by now," I said. "We'll have to come back for it later." If we live that long, said Millard. Minutes later, we were riding a cramped subway car toward Manhattan. Was that the right way to go? We had jumped onto the first train that came, just to get away from the people hunting us. While my friends talked in hushed voices about who those people might have been, whites, some hostile, peculiar clan we knew nothing about, I stood up and looked at the map on the wall of the subway car, routes branching out everywhere. We were supposed to take Noor to that island in the middle of a river. 144, Blackwell's Island. It had said on the postcard. I asked Noor and Lily if they knew where it was. Neither had heard of it. I had no phone reception to do a map search, and once we found the island, how would we find the loop? Loop entrances were rarely obvious. But the more I thought about it, the less certain I felt about the plan. It was the mission we'd been given, but H's sudden order to abort had thrown everything into doubt. What circumstances had changed? What had he been calling to warn me about exactly? Was it the people who were hunting us that he'd been worried about? Or was Loop 144 no longer safe? What's more, the subject of the mission was more than just the subject now. She was Noor, and she had a name, and a story, and a face, a very pretty one at that. It was hard for me to imagine delivering her into the hands of strangers. Was I really supposed to dump her into some loop I knew nothing about, wash my hands of her, and head home? I glanced over at her now, her scuffed Vans on the plastic bench seat and knees hugged to her chest, staring at the floor with a weariness, the depth of which I could hardly fathom. Would you miss New York if you had to leave? I asked her. It took 5 full seconds to draw herself out of whatever thought she'd been sunk in and look at me. Miss New York? Why? Because I think you should come home with us instead. Emma looked at me sharply, but it was Millard who objected aloud. That's not the mission. Forget the mission, I said. She'll be safer with us than in any loop in this crazy city, or on the side of the ocean. We live in London most of the time, Emma explained, in Devil's Acre. Noor recoiled a bit. It's not as bad as it sounds, Millard said. Once you get past the smell, anyway. We're nearly finished with this mission from hell, said Enoch. Let's not muck it up now. Let's just take her where she's supposed to go and be done with it already. We don't know who's in this loop we're going to, I said, or how capable they are, or anything. Is that any of our concern? Said Enoch. I agree with Jacob, said Millard. There are almost no Imbrans left in America, and it's an Imbran's job to protect the shape uncontacted peculiars. Who's going to teach her how to be peculiar? Noor raised her hand. Is anyone going to fill me in here? In Imbran, they're like teachers, I said, and protectors. And government leaders, said Millard, and then he added under his breath, though unelected. And overbearing know-it-alls who are always minding other people's business, said Enoch. Essentially the backbone of our whole society, said Emma. We don't need an Imbrin, I said. We just need someplace safe. Anyway, Miss Peregrine probably wants to kill us right now. She'll get over it, Enoch said. So, would you come with us? I asked Noor. She sighed, then chuckled. What the hell? I could use a vacation. Hey, what about me? Lily said. You'd be more than welcome to come, Millard said a bit too eagerly. Though normal people cannot enter loops, I'm afraid. I can't leave anyway, Lily said. School just started. Then she laughed and said, God, listen to me. As if none of this insanity ever happened. That's how badly school has messed up my brain. Well, education is important, said Millard. But I have parents. Pretty good ones, actually. And they would worry about me a lot. I'll be back, said Noor. But getting out of town until this stuff blows over sounds like an excellent idea. So you trust us now? I said. She shrugged. Enough. How do you feel about road trips? Out of nowhere, Bronwyn slumped forward in her seat and crumpled to the floor. Bronwyn! Emma cried and leapt down next to her. If any of the people in the subway car had seen, they pretended they hadn't. Is she okay? Enoch said. I don't know, said Emma. She slapped Bronwyn's cheek lightly and repeated her name until her eyes blinked open again. Fellows, I think... Rats, I should have mentioned this earlier. Bronwyn winced, raised the hem of her shirt. She was bleeding from her torso. Bronwyn, said Emma. My God! The man with the gun. I think he shot me. Don't worry, though. Not with a bullet. Bronwyn opened her palm to show us a small dart, tipped now with her own blood. Why didn't you say something? I said. We needed to get out of there quickly, and I thought I was strong enough to overcome whatever he'd shot me with. But apparently, her head lolled to the side, and she passed out. And that is the end of the chapter. So yeah, it is a cliffhanger. It just wasn't where you thought it would be. Oh shit. Yeah. I can make coffee and you can make cheesecake, and I will definitely eat the cheesecake. But I was actually already planning on making a cheesecake tomorrow, which I didn't account for. So I read that and I was like, I already got all the stuff to make a cheesecake. So if you also want to come over tomorrow and then we can swap cheesecake. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You use your best judgment. I don't know what the deal with the cheesecake was. I was making cheesecake for an unrelated reason, and then I forgot to respond to that text message because I was going into therapy. So make two cheesecakes. cheesecake. Yeah. I need virtual cheesecake sent to me or the recipe. I will, if it pans out, I'll send you the recipe that I did. And then, what is the deal? Of course, cat facts to make up for the awful cliffhanger. And we actually skipped a cat, and I didn't realize it because the header was really low on the page. So we're going to backtrack to the Cymric cat. So, one extra C in the category. Legend has it that when Noah called all the animals into the ark, one cat, the Manx, was napping. Waking just in time, it ran for the boat as Noah was closing the door, which he slammed on the Manx's tail, chopping it off. And so the tailless Manx, the short-haired version of the Cymric, was created. Of course, the real story is a bit less graphic. The Manx is believed to have originated on the Isle of Man, where the tailless trait was a result of genetic mutation. Due to the isolated nature of the island, it was easy for this mutation to replicate, producing generations of tailless cats. While long-haired cats were occasionally also born on the island, breeders were at first disinterested in this mutation. It wasn't until Canadian breeders began intentionally breeding long-haired Manx cats in the 1960s that the Cymric breed began taking hold. Identical to the Manx in every way except hair length, the Cymric is a compact, sturdy cat with a short arched back that gives it an overall rounded appearance. The medium-long coat, which can be any color, has a silky texture and is well padded due to an undercoat. While only completely tailless Cymrics can be show cats, they have very short tails, and others have tails almost as long as a regular cat. Occasionally, the gene that causes the unusual tails can cause problems, including spina bifida or fused vertebra, so responsible breeding is a must. These gentle, loyal cats are right at home in families with children and other pets. Kitty! That one has a tail. I was wishing they got a picture of one without a tail, but it's fine. Anyway, cute babies. So sorry for the cliffhanger, but there's your fun cat fact for the day. Sweet little baby. I love cats that just have like the really round bodies and the round faces. Look so fluffy. I like big fluffy cats. I think like it's almost like the stereotypical almost Garfield face where they're kind of poochy, like little pudgy cherub cheeks. Adorable. I love all cats though. Anybody knows that. It doesn't even matter what the cat looks like. I'm like, I love all the cats. My my preference is any and all cats, including zombie cats. I'm fine with all the cats. All right. But yeah, that's been a fun time. We're a couple minutes over. But at this point, I normally switch over to Discord and go game, and it's no different this week. So I'm going to swap over to the Discord. Discord you can find in my TikTok profile if you want to watch me fail at video games. We're playing through Outer Worlds right now. I'm failing terribly at it. It's a great time. You can join us there. And I do this every single week at Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central. And I upload all the lives onto my YouTube, which is also in the TikTok profile description. So you can follow along and catch up with where you fell behind. All the links are up there, except for the exclusion of one chapter in the last book that I just gotta upload. I gotta get over myself. I had to sing in that one. It was a bad time. Um, so I'll get that uploaded. But other than that, you can join us next week, Tuesday, 8 Central, And I will see you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out with me. Of course. Thank you all for showing up here every single week. It's a fun time. Falling with style. All right. See you in the Discord, you guys. Thank you guys.